Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. Today, we're talking about the top 5 rookie running backs coming into the NFL this season, the fantasy impact, the strength, the weaknesses, everything in this show. Special guest on, and he's not even a special guest. He's more of a recurring guest right now. Walter from Walter Football. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on again. Excited to talk about these rookie running backs.
I'm excited too. This is very important. This is my favorite position. I think it's a lot of people's favorite position because these guys can have a significant fantasy football impact predicated on where they land. Now, we are looking for the next Saquon, the next CMC, the next Zeke Elliott. You've got a lot of insight on this. Now, I have a really good sixth sense for spotting out rookie running backs that break out. But a lot of this is predicated, again, where they land. Where they land is really going to help because we know where the depth charts are. Are they going to be the committee? Are they going to be the full workhorse? That's going to make a huge difference on these young players here. But you've got a lot of insight because can you tell us a little bit briefly about your site for the people who aren't aware of you? What do you do? I know you got feet on the street and, you know, they've been at the combine. They've seen these players. They go to college games. Can you explain who you got on the street there looking at this stuff?
Yeah, so I run WalterFootball.com. We've been around since 1999, and we've covered the NFL draft since 2001. We have multiple mock drafts on the site, so we currently have a 6th-rounder for me and a 4rounder from Charlie Campbell, who, in my opinion, does the best draft reporting on the internet. I mean, he's great. He talks to NFL teams, so he gets the inside information. So we kind of have, by the time the draft rolls around, like a week beforehand, we kind of know what a lot of teams are going to do. But Charlie talks to a lot of teams and scouts and stuff like that. So he has a good idea of where the players will be drafted right now. So, so you can go to walterfootball.com. We have tons of draft information, plus fantasy football content, free picks. We're going to be grading every single free agency signing. So check us out. All the content's free.
Right. I like to fill in my weaknesses, and how I work is I do watch some college, but not on your level. I'm not at all the college games. I don't go to the combine too often or at all. I may go in the future, but I want to get that kind of hands-on, eyes experience. You guys are there, that input on the show. With me, it's more just watching a lot of tape, looking at some college games, looking at the scouting reports, and then seeing where they land. So I do all of this stuff kind of after college, kind of where they land. So it's going to be the kind of two perspectives here. So let's go into this, the top 5. And again, I'm going to kind of lay it out in my order. So we kind of talked before the show. There's a couple guys here that I guess we're kind of debating about on who we like. The first guy I think should be Jonathan Taylor, definitely a first rounder. My question to you, let's talk about him. Let's talk about his strengths first, and then we're going to talk about where he lands, his weaknesses, all that stuff. Now, I like him. Ran a 4.39 dash, 5'10", 220. Looks like your prototypical workhorse running back, your Saquon, your Zeke. My concern, again, is the pass catching. I guess he's not as good a pass catcher. That's what I kind of want to go over with you. Can you give me your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor? And I don't think you think he's number 1, right, according to the top 5 that we've got here. But let's talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's number 2. He's right behind DeAndre Swift, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But Jonathan Taylor, he tested more athletically than Swift, so he has that going for him. He's a power runner. He has great acceleration. He compares, I would say, to Marshawn Lynch maybe. Lynch was never a great receiver out of the backfield. He could catch some passes here and there, but he was never going to be a great PPR back. So that's kind of where Jonathan Taylor is for me. Another concern I have with him is the workload he's handled over the past couple years at Wisconsin. And I think we discussed this in a previous episode where this is not going to affect Taylor in his first, second, third year, et cetera. Although some injuries might result from it. It's going to affect him long term. So, if I would say like the average good running back retires at 30, 31, he may have to retire at like 28, 29, which is a shame that they ran him into the ground like that at Wisconsin. But he could have left early. So not really, you can't really blame all the coaches for that. But yeah, I mean, Taylor is going to be, I think he's going to be a very good running back in the NFL, maybe a great running back. It really depends on where he goes. Like you said, it's all about where they land. We don't know that yet, but he should be a star.
This is what I want to see, though. I want to see in 2017, 299 attempts, just under 2,000 yards. And in 2018, 2019, 2,000-plus yard seasons. a ton of volume. I'm looking at 320 attempts back in 2019, 307 in 2018. This is what I want to see. I want the NFL to realize this guy is a workhorse, and hopefully for fantasy purposes, he is used as a workhorse. So I look at it as a plus. So if you're looking at dynasty, maybe we're thinking, according to what Walter's saying, yes, he has been worked hard. That may play a factor, but we've got him, solid, hopefully for at least 3 to 4 years, I think, before it really starts taking a toll, hopefully. But again, vision, power, pretty good speed, workhorse ability, everything that we want in a prototypical running back. Now let's talk about that weakness again. You say maybe he's worn, which I think is actually a plus that he's got that workload. But what about that a little bit of ball security and the pass catching? Is that going to be a big factor? Is ball security going to be an issue?
It depends how bad it is. I mean, if he fumbles once every 8 games or so, not a huge deal. But if he does fumble more often than that, he might get pulled. We've seen that before from running backs. Especially Tom Coughlin's coaching him, because he's like renowned for benching running backs for that. But yeah, I mean, the receiving ability isn't up to where it should be, but that's something that can always improve. You look at I would say Josh Jacobs is an example this year. He barely caught the ball. He was barely on the field on third down, but he was still a very good running back because he played all of first and second down. So it shouldn't affect Taylor too much. If you're in PPR, maybe that's something you should consider. But overall, I mean, Taylor should be a very good running back in his first year.
All right, so he's kind of my number one right now. I need to see more of DeAndre Swift and see where he lands, because he could definitely be my number one. DeAndre Swift ran a 4.48, 5'9", 215 out of Georgia. I like Georgia running backs. Now, from what I'm reading and what I saw, he does actually look like the most complete back, very shifty, amazing vision. I think he's very complete. Again, the pass catching, he can catch the ball. He's got that really good initial burst, good pass protection. Very versatile. But again, I love that shiftiness, stops, cuts, runs, just very versatile. I feel really comfortable having this guy as my workhorse running back. Why do you have him at number one? Is it because of everything I said? Is there any other things that I'm missing on what makes him ahead of Jonathan Taylor, in your opinion?
I think you said it mostly. I mean, he's the more complete back. He catches passes better. I think his vision is better than Taylor's. Vision's so underrated for running backs. He has great cutting ability. He can go the distance anytime he touches the ball. He's like LaShawn McCoy, I think. Right. So yeah, I just think he's the more complete back, but it's so close with him and Taylor. So you can't go wrong. I imagine some teams have Swift higher than Taylor. Some teams might have Taylor higher than Swift. So I think you can't go wrong with these guys, but I'd rather have the 3-down back, and I'd rather have the guy who wasn't running to the ground in college.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Taylor does definitely look more of a physical specimen when you're watching him on the field, if you were to put him side by side. Yeah, it's going to be a coin toss between these two, but do you believe that they're going to go 1 and 2, like either way? For sure.
Yeah, one or the other. I think that there are going to be 2 running backs in the first round, and I think they'll be the 2.
Okay, perfect. Next one I got, and again, this order may vary for you. This is kind of how I've got him laid out. But I've got J.K. Dobbins at 3, ran a 4.45 at Ohio, 5'10", 216. This guy gets it done from what I saw on tape. Strong between tackles, very impressive, good vision, good patience, natural receiver. From what I read from the scouting reports, he does lack that third gear in the big plays. That's what I'm kind of reading here. What do you kind of see with him? Do you see him being a workhorse running back and a real fantasy impact in the first year?
Yeah, I think he can be a workhorse on first and second downs, kind of like Josh Jacobs. He can run through contact. He has great explosion. He can go the distance whenever he touches the ball. He's I would say he's like I think a slightly larger Devontae Freeman. But the issue with him is the pass protection. I don't like he's a good receiver out of the backfield, but the pass protection might keep him off the field in third downs, which is a concern for me.
Yeah, what I'm reading also and what I saw on tape, he's very reliable, but he's not flashy. I don't know how much of a fantasy impact he's going to be. Just a guy that gets it done is what I got from the tape. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he definitely has home run ability, but yeah, sometimes it's a little lacking. But I think the pass protection is the big thing. Like coaches won't play running backs in third down. No matter how good they are as receivers, if they can't pass protect at all. And then that's the problem for him that he has to improve. But that's something he can get better at.
All right. Now, was he your number 3, would you say?
Yeah, he's my number 3. I have him in the second round to the Lions.
Okay, that's interesting. And I'm afraid of anyone going to the Lions or Miami. I gotta be honest with you. I hope to God they improve their O line, get some good quarterbacks. I don't. Well, not so much Lions, but Miami. I mean, I just don't want anyone to have the fate of Miami and not have that O line improved and the situation around them. So I just hate it when good running backs come in to die for fantasy football. A perfect example, Sony Michel, a guy that could have been definitely utilized as a 3-down back, ends up in New England and is part of a committee. Just not a good situation. That was a real heartbreaker for me because I really had high hopes for him. And I hope it doesn't happen. And it will happen to at least a couple of these guys, unfortunately. They'll be in a situation where it's just not really fantasy favorable, I would say.
Yeah, well, there might be more heartbreaks because I have Swift going to Miami, as you just said, and then I have Taylor going to the Baltimore. So that's another
Oh,
committee. So
that
not so
hurts.
yeah, no good situations yet, but the next guy might be a good situation.
Okay, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Is that who you have? A four?
Yeah, that's
All
right.
right, 5'8", 210, low center of gravity, very compact, great vision. Receptions were good, right? So the only thing, again, that knocked him is that he is shorter, he is smaller, which is also kind of an advantage because that low center of gravity. A guy that has, from what I saw on tape, has a nose for the end zone. He ran a 4.60. He's out of LSU. So what do you think of this guy? I mean, a little smaller. Who would you compare him to right now in the NFL? And do you see him being a workhorse running back? Because of the height and the weight, I'm a little concerned. More the height, actually.
Yeah, I think the size is definitely the concern. I think that's the biggest weakness is if he can handle a full workload, and I think that's the big problem I have. But he's such an explosive playmaker; he can catch a ton of passes out of the backfield. So if you're playing a PPR, I think that's something you have to consider. Maybe you even put him ahead of Dobbins if you're in PPR. The ability to handle full workload. I have him compared to Brian Westbrook. That was that was the kind of like the bugaboo with Westbrook coming out of Villanova was if he can handle the full workload because he was kind of a smaller back. But maybe he can he can surprise us. I'm a little skeptical right now, but players have proven us wrong before. So kind of like maybe like a Philip Lindsay, like people thought, oh, he can only handle like 10 carries per game, but he's shown that he can do it, and I think
Right.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do it too.
All right, next guy, number 5, Cam Akers, 5'11", 215. From what I'm seeing here, home run speed, pass catcher, changes direction quick. I like him. Now, apparently, he played behind a bad O line. Am I right? And he had some fumbling issues. Is that going to be a concern? I mean, if he's on a good team, he should be fine, right? But did he do well considering he was up behind a bad O line?
Yeah, I mean he's a very talented runner. He's great cutting ability and like very good vision too. And yeah, I think the fumbling is definitely a big question mark. And if he starts fumbling a lot, he's going to get benched. Pass protection is also a big issue too. So he may not be on the field on third downs. So that's definitely going to be a problem that he has to fix. And I guess you can fix pass protection so he can get better in that regard.
Right.
But yeah, I mean he's a talented runner. He should go in the second round. Not too much wrong with him outside of those two things.
So are you okay with these top 5 that I came up with? And is there anyone else that could potentially slide in, or is there anything else you'd change on this?
No, that's the same top 5 I had, except I had Swift first ahead of Taylor.
Okay.
But you can't really go wrong with either of those guys. I think someone who could sneak in is Zach Moss from
Right.
Utah. I have him in the third round. He's a tough runner, good receiving ability, good quickness. Not too athletic, so he's going to be limited to like the late second, third round. But he's definitely another guy who do well. And like usually we see running backs chosen in the third round who come out of nowhere and become great rookies. So he
Right.
could be one of those guys.
Okay, so let's go over this. Jonathan Taylor at number 1, you have met 2, but where do you see? You said let's recap. Where do you think these guys were going to end up potentially? Because you've done a lot of mock drafts and looked at that. So you think Jonathan Taylor ends up in Baltimore?
Yeah, I have Taylor slotted to Baltimore right now. I mean that's definitely going to change throughout the pre-draft process. I know Baltimore is in the market for a running back. Mark Ingram is getting, I think he's about to hit 30, and he has a lot of tread on his tires. So I think the Ravens want a new running back. They weren't very impressed with Justice Hill. So Yeah, I have Taylor going to Baltimore, and I have Swift going to Miami. Obviously, the Dolphins need a running back, but I heard today that they were interested in Melvin Gordon. So that could definitely change
But
things.
would they get Swift in the first round? Would they be focused on like a quarterback or something?
Yeah, so right now the Dolphins have 3 picks,
Oh,
5,
like the three
18.
picks. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they have 5, 18, and 26. So at 5, I think they take either Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa. I think they prefer Herbert, from what I hear. So at 18, they could draft a running back or they could draft the tackle. So I think 18 and 26, it goes either way. I think they need a tackle, and then they go running back or vice versa, unless they sign Melvin Gordon.
I hope to God, man, that Swift doesn't end up there. I really do. I don't want to see him there. I don't want to see any running back there. What a disaster. Um, where do you see J.K. Dobbins ending up?
So I have J.K. Dobbins going in the second round to Detroit. So the Lions, they have Kerryon Johnson, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Bo Scarborough looked okay at the end of last year. He's not special. I think they're going to be interested in a running back in the second, third, maybe fourth round.
Clyde Edwards, where do you think he ends up?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I have him to Kansas City. Kansas City, they were not happy with what LaShawn McCoy gave him. Darwin Thompson was a disappointment. He played at the end of the year, but he wasn't anything special.
Right.
I think they expected more from him. And Andy Reid has never seemed to be a big fan of Damian Williams. It's always looking like he wants to replace Damian Williams, despite what Williams did in the Super Bowl. So I think that the Chiefs go after a running back.
I think he'd be a good fit there, actually. I really do. I think Clyde Edwards would be a great fit there. I think he'd have more of a fantasy impact there than pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, if it went according to plan, I think he might be number one, at least in his first year.
And where do you see Cam Akers ending up?
I'm going to Tampa. So obviously the Buccaneers need a running back. Peyton Barber is pretty pedestrian. Ronald Jones has, he's had some good games here and there, but it doesn't seem like Bruce Arians likes him. So Tampa obviously needs a running back.
Man, I'm a little concerned about Jonathan Taylor now. And I'm wondering if they're going to bring Jonathan Taylor in to take the load off of Lamar Jackson, because he's got to stop running. I mean, I know everyone's like, yeah, he's got to keep running for fantasy. I get it. But, man, how many rushes? He had a lot of rushing attempts and a lot of yards, over 1,200 yards. He's putting himself at risk. He's not a running back. It's going to catch up with him. I don't see it being well. But do you see that the reason why, kind of aside from Ingram being older?
Yeah, they run the ball so much, and they can only give Mark Ingram a certain number of carries. So, like, after Ingram, like, okay, so what do you do? Like, obviously, Lamar Jackson's going to run too, and you want that to be, like you said, slightly less because you don't want him to get hurt. So you still have a ton of carries to go around. So do you want to give those to Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, or do you want to give them to Jonathan Taylor? Like, so the Ravens don't have that many weaknesses. Like, they're pretty strong all around. Like, they need an edge rush, they need a guard with Marshall Yonder retiring. But other than that, and receiver, I guess. But other than that, they really don't have that many weaknesses. So they can bolster a strength. And Ingram, in a year or two, he may not be able to play anymore. So they need a running back for the future.
You've been around longer than me in regards to fantasy industry and watching, playing fantasy, I should say. I've been watching football since I was a kid as well. But what I wanted to ask you, do you think that from your trends, do you think that the trend is moving towards getting rid of the workhorse running back more or less and going more to a committee? Are you seeing this more of a trend than it was, let's say, 12, 15 years ago?
Well, yeah, I remember in the early and mid 2000s, like if a running back didn't get 20 touchdowns, you were disappointed with him. Like it's so weird how things have changed. I don't think teams want to do this. I just think there's so many running backs, good players who can play running back around, that teams are forced into doing this. If that weren't the case, you would see guys like Mark Ingram run into the ground. They'd have 300 plus carries every single year, and they get 15 plus touchdowns. It's just not the case anymore because there's so many good guys at the position that you can afford to kind of like rotate the carries between them and keep them fresh.
This is what I hate. I actually got to stop, putting my emotions, because I get angry, especially when I have a running back I'm invested in. I think they could be a workhorse back, and someone else comes in and pests away the carries or the goal line work. So my focus is honestly to try to get those workhorse running backs, but I get so angry every year. So I load up on my guys that I think are going to be top guys. Your Saquon, your Derrick Henry. I had a combo of Saquon, Derrick Henry. I had a couple of combos of David Johnson, Henry. We don't want to talk about David Johnson. That's a whole other story. But when I was going with third running back, I thought David Montgomery would have been a workhorse. But every time I saw Tariq Cohen come in, I wanted to smash my TV. And it's not like Tariq Cohen's better. He couldn't even catch the ball. He led the team in drop passes. He was dropping everything. He's not that good, but yet he didn't even take Montgomery out near the goal line for Tariq Cohen. I would legitimately get angry at this. I wish there was a way for this to stop. I wish there was a way for just, the workhorses to come in and just be the main guy. I think I don't know. It's bothering me a lot.
Yeah, things have changed a lot, and the workhorse running backs are pretty rare. That's why I was happy to see that Josh Jacobs is going to catch passes now, like he's going to play on third down. So that at least is good news. And yeah, David Montgomery was such a big disappointment last year. He just didn't play very well. But some of that I think was the offensive line. Chicago's offensive line took a major hit last year when Kyle Long got hurt, and then some of their tackles didn't play as well. So that kind of factored into Montgomery disappointing. So that's something to consider. If the Bears improve their offensive line this offseason, I think Montgomery could be a good buy low guy.
I think he gets more work. All right, guys. So that's it. I don't want to get off tangent here, off target here. But Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards, and Cam Akers are your top 5 rookie running backs going into the season. Again, be careful because some of these guys may land on teams that will not help them for fantasy football. This is what we're going to determine after the draft. And also some of the guys, below these guys could emerge and be in better positions for fantasy football that you may want to draft as well to mid to later rounds. But I'm excited. And I got to ask you this. I know, again, it depends on where they land. Pick one running back here that you think, I think you're going to go with Swift here. But anyway, I want to hear it. That could crack the top 10. Is it going to be Swift?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where he goes. If Swift goes to Miami, I think he can get again into the top 10. The Dolphins have. I know you're concerned with the Dolphins, and rightfully so. They've been terrible recently, but they have so many draft picks, and they have the most money to spend in free agency that I have to believe that they're going to upgrade the offensive line. So right now it might seem like a terrible situation, but if they add 2 good linemen in free agency and they draft a good tackle in the first round, like suddenly that'll look pretty good. So I like Swift a lot.
And a good quarterback and a good running back. Yeah. O-line, running back, and quarterback. I mean, let's go. What about defense? How much does that have to be addressed with Miami?
They have a lot of defensive holes, but I know that this is not a 1-year rebuild for them. It's a 2-year rebuild. They have multiple first-rounders next year as well. So that they can focus on defense next year. Their defense is going to be horrible again probably next year. I think they're focusing on their offense this year because they want to draft a quarterback. So next year they're going to focus on defense. And next year's defensive class looks great. So.
Well, yeah, if you get a quarterback, you got to protect them, right? So Cincinnati has to do that as well. I think Cincinnati has the same type of problem, except they do have a running back. I'm not really crazy on Mixon, but better than what Miami has right now. So
that's true.
All right. Thanks, Walter, for being on, man. I'm excited about the season, and I don't know what's going on, man, with this Corona thing. I mean, did you hear anything about the draft being pushed back to May? Have you heard anything about that?
I saw a report yesterday that they said the NFL is considering pushing it back to late May or June. But the NFL hasn't really confirmed that yet. So we don't know. I have to believe that something will be pushed back, whether it's free agency or the draft, because it's a pretty bleak situation.
Yep. I hope this all blows over. I really do. So thanks for being on, guys. Check them out, walterfootball.com. And I appreciate everyone being here. Smash the thumbs up and subscribe. And we are out. Thanks, Walter, for being on.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
Right.